This video is on quadratic basics as well, but this is using the graph given to you to fill out the chart to find the important information. So we're going to be looking at the graph, we're going to fill out the chart with the important information, then we're going to label the graph with the information. So this chart, it asks us for the x-intercepts, the vertex, axis of symmetry, y-intercept, which way it opens, if it's a minimum or a maximum, and the value of it, and then the domain and the range. So this graph, we can see that it's on an x, y axis, and they're counting by ones because it goes to 5 here, and it goes up to 10 here. So let's first find our x-intercepts. I'm going to write these in red. I'm going to find them on the graph. X-intercepts are where it crosses the x-axis. These are also called roots, solutions, and zeros. I'm going to write out x-intercept, x-intercept. These, I'm labeling it on that graph. This is at coordinate 2, 0. So I have to write it out as parentheses 2, 0 because it is a coordinate. And, so I did an and symbol. I also have this coordinate, which is at 4, 0. And I write it in parentheses. If it's not, then it's not a coordinate. The next one we can find is our vertex, which I'm going to use in light blue. So my vertex is where the graph curves and it starts going in different, back where it back where it came from. So my vertex is that lowest or highest point, and I can see that it's going to be right here. This is our vertex. And this is a coordinate, so it is at 1, 2, 3, -1. So I will write it out as 3, -1. The axis of symmetry is that line. It's which line will create the symmetry in the parabola. So how would I fold this graph to make one side of the parabola hit the other? So if I want this side of the parabola to come over here, I would have to fold it along a vertical line. That vertical line would be through that vertex, because that vertex has no mirror. So my vertical line here, I am going to draw it out, this vertical line. You should always draw out your axis of symmetry. I'm going to label it as AOS because that's the axis of symmetry. It's going to be x equals. It is an equation of a line. It's an equation of a vertical line. So it is x equals, and it's the x value of your vertex is 3. So x equals 3. So the axis of symmetry is x equals 3. You should always label that out on the actual graph itself. The next one we're going to find is our y-intercept, and that's where the graph crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to write that in pink. I'm going to find this on the y-axis, so right here. This is our y-intercept. And it's at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's at 0, 8. Now, I can also go ahead and find the mirror of my y-intercept, because remember, we want to have 5 points. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have to label what it actually is, but I do want to find it on here. So using the axis of symmetry, I can actually count to the axis of symmetry and then count to the other side. So I can see that this is at 0, 8, 1, 8, 2, 8, 3, 8. Then I can go to 4, 8, 5, 8, 6, 8. So this is actually the mirror of the y-intercept. So again, I can go, it was 0 to 3 is 3 spaces. Then I count the same amount. From 3, add 3, I got to 6. So this is 6, and then I have the same y value as my y-intercept, so it's 6, 8. I want to have that so that I can actually have 5 coordinates. So now I have 2, 3, 4, 5. So now my graph can be accurate when I am trying to graph it myself. Next, I'm going to write in green. It opens, the graph is opening up because the arrows are pointing up. That means that this will be a minimum value because this is the lower point. Minimum versus maximum. You can have a minimum wage, maximum wage. So minimum is the lowest amount you can have. You have the lowest point possible. The value, the minimum value, we already have the axis of symmetry from that vertex. So the minimum value also comes from your vertex. It's that y value, because that will help you with your range. The value is always the y value of your vertex, because that minimum value has to come from your vertex. So it's -1. Domain for all quadratics, I'm going to write this in orange, all quadratics is going to be open bracket, -infinity, comma, positive infinity, open bracket. Because all quadratics go left and right forever. As long as you have a full quadratic, as long as there's no holes or anything like that, which you'll see in higher math classes, for this course, all quadratics will go left and right forever. So your domain is -infinity to infinity with open brackets. Now your range, it depends on if it's opening up or down and your value. So if you look at this, which infinity should we have? That's what you really want to focus on first. I'm going to write this in purple. I'm going to go ahead and put a comma in here. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you have the positive infinity or do you have a negative infinity? So this graph is going to go up forever, so you're going to have a positive infinity. And positive infinity is always written on the right-hand side. Therefore, the left-hand side has to be a number, and that's where that value comes into play. That's why we write out what that value is. So it's that -1 is the value of your range. So it's a closed bracket on the -1 because it actually does stop there. And then it never actually reaches infinity, so that's why it's an open bracket. And this is the chart on all of this. So on the graph, if you have the graph, you can answer all of these questions just by finding the coordinates. So I'm going to go and I have 4 more that I will work on. Okay, on this one, same information. We're going to find the x-intercepts and everything. So on here, this first one, x-intercepts, I'm writing in red. Square across the x-axis is right here. It only has 1, because as you can see, the graph is actually bouncing off of that x-intercept, or x-axis. It's just going to touch it and come back down. So the x-intercept is actually just at 0, 0. And in this case, because our x-intercepts, that is actually also at our vertex. Our vertex is also 0, 0. Anytime the graph bounces off of the x-axis, your x-intercept is also your vertex. So that means that our axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 0, because that's the x value of your vertex. And you draw that in, this little dotted vertical line, say AOS x equals 0. The y-intercept is actually also going to be at 0, 0, because if your x is 0, you have your y-intercept. So this is also our y-intercept. That means that we don't have a mirror of our y-intercept because they're all located at the same coordinate. So now, which way does it open? You can see that the graph is going down. So that means that we have a higher point. This point is up high, so this is a maximum. That value, again, the value is the y value of your vertex. So if we go back to our vertex, that y value is 0. Domain for all quadratics is written open bracket, -infinity, comma, positive infinity, open bracket. Our range, so I'm going to put my comma, it's going down, so that means it's going to have a negative infinity. And just using your range, your domain as a guide, negative infinity is always written on the left-hand side. So we can put our negative infinity over here. Sorry, this is supposed to be in pink. We can put our negative infinity on the left-hand side, so then the value goes into the right-hand side. So we have a closed bracket on the 0 and an open bracket on the negative infinity. On this next one, I'm going to do the same thing. So the x-intercepts are where it crosses the x-axis. So x-intercept, x-intercept. That looks like to be at coordinate half, 1/2, comma 0. And that's negative, looks like -2.5, comma 0. So -5/2, comma 0. You could use decimals as well. Decimals here, that would be -5/10, and then this would be -2 5/10. The vertex is going to be where it curves. So here's our vertex. Looks to be at -1, -2. Our axis of symmetry is that vertical line that goes through the vertex. And since the vertical line, it has the equation x equals, and it's that x equals -1 because that is your actual value. That's the x value of your vertex. Your y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, so right here. Y-intercept is at 0, -1. You can also find the mirror, so I have to go left 1 to my axis of symmetry, so I go left 1 more. So it looks to be at about -2, -1. That's just the mirror. This graph is the arrows are pointing up, so it's opening up. That means that we have a low value down here. It means it's a minimum. The value of that is, again, is from the y value of your vertex, so the value is that -2. The domain, again, is going left and right forever, so the domain for quadratics is open bracket, -infinity, comma, positive infinity, open bracket. And then our range, I'm going to put my comma. The range is up and down, so this graph is going up forever, so that goes to the positive infinities. So again, using our domain, positive infinity is on the right-hand side. So I put my positive infinity on the right-hand side with an open bracket, and my value will go on the other side. So I have my -2. It starts at -2, the y value, and it goes up forever. That's why the range is -2 to infinity. So I'm going to go quickly through these as well. X-intercepts. X-intercepts, it looks to be at -1, 0, and 3, 0. The vertex looks to be at 1, 4. So our axis of symmetry is that vertical line going through x equals 1. So x equals 1. I'm going to put AOS x equals 1. So when up here, I apologize, I didn't do this yet. AOS x equals -1. Should always label your AOS. The y-intercept is at 0, 3. It opens down because the graph is pointing down. That means that you have a high point up here. Your point is located up high, so that means it's a maximum. And the maximum value is that 4. It's that y value of the vertex. The domain is open bracket, -infinity, comma, positive infinity, open bracket. Our range, since it's going down, it has that -infinity, and it goes up to +4. So open bracket, -infinity to +4, close bracket. And this last one, the x-intercepts are at where across the x-axis we have -3, 0, and -1, 0. Our vertex is at -2, -1. That means our axis of symmetry is that vertical line going through -2, so x equals -2, so AOS x equals -2. Our y-intercept is at 0, 3. This graph is pointing up, so the graph is going to open up, and our vertex is located at the bottom, so that's a minimum value. And that value, again, comes from the y of the vertex. It's at -1. Domain is open bracket, -infinity to positive infinity, because it goes left and right forever. And then our range, comma, it's going to go up forever, so we're going to have a positive infinity. And our value is -1. So our graph is going from -1 up forever. So close bracket, -1, comma, infinity, open bracket. This is quadratic basics. This is just taking the information from the graph itself and knowing what the values are and knowing where the coordinates are located.